Hello back again on the Top Recap channel. This time I will tell a movie's entitled Army of One. Let's get straight into the storyline. The story opens with two police officers, Dylan Baker and Frank Shelton, assigned to investigate a house suspected of being used for drug smuggling and human trafficking. They break through the front door and enter cautiously. Soon after, Frank discovers a woman lying motionless on the floor. In another part of the house, Dylan decides they should quietly check each room, his gun drawn in case of danger. Suddenly, a masked man attacks Dylan. After a brief struggle, Dylan manages to overpower him. He then hears Frank groaning from another room. When Dylan reaches him, he finds Frank badly injured and covered in blood. Dylan calls for backup, but suddenly wakes up. It was all just a nightmare. In reality, Dylan is now on a road trip with his wife, Breener, who is driving them to a forest in Alabama for a camping retreat. The getaway is meant to help Dylan recover from a gunshot wound sustained during a mission with Frank. On the way, they stop at a small roadside restaurant to eat and rest. While Dylan heads to the restroom to tend to his wound, Breener waits at their table. Moments later, three intimidating men enter the restaurant. One of them, a large man named Butcher, approaches Breener and starts harassing her with inappropriate remarks, joined by his two friends.
What a mouth you got there.
Dylan returns just in time, furious at what he sees. Tensions rise, and a fight nearly breaks out, but an elderly woman intervenes and orders the men to leave.
Butch!
Yes, Mama.
She introduces herself as Mama, the owner of the restaurant.
Thank you, Mama.
After their break, Dylan and Breener continue their journey and eventually arrive at the forest. They set up camp, cook some food, and enjoy the peaceful natural surroundings. While they're relaxing, a female forest officer approaches Breener and reminds her to follow the local rules, noting that the villagers nearby are wary of outsiders. Later that afternoon, just before sunset, Dylan and Breener decide to take a walk in the forest, leaving their tent behind.
Working at cardio.
As they venture deeper, it begins to rain. They search for shelter and come across an old house. Taking cover on the porch, they wait out the storm in each other's arms. Curious, Breener suggests they go inside. The door is unlocked, so they enter and spend more time together. Once the rain stops, Dylan prepares to head back to the tent, grabbing his backpack. Breener, however, decides to explore the house further. While investigating the rooms, she stumbles upon a hidden door behind a cupboard. Intrigued, she calls Dylan to come see it, but he stays in the living room. Breener enters the secret room alone and is shocked to find a stash of illegal weapons and ammunition. She quickly alerts Dylan, and they both realize they're in serious danger. Dylan insists they leave immediately, but before they can escape, Butcher and his men ambush them. It turns out he's part of a dangerous gang involved in drug trafficking and arms dealing. The couple is captured and taken to the basement. Dylan is brutally beaten as Butcher demands to know who sent them. Breener, gagged and terrified, can only watch in horror.
Who sent you?
Nobody. We're on vacation.
Dylan insists they're just tourists, but when one of the gang members finds their tent and discovers Dylan's police ID, everything changes. Without hesitation, Butcher returns and shoots Dylan in the head. Breener screams, only to be silenced by another gunshot. The room goes quiet.
Throw him in the gully.
Believing them dead, the gang disposes of the bodies by tossing them into a pit near a cliff. Time passes. Then, something miraculous happens. Breener, once a highly trained soldier, begins to stir. Her mind drifts into memories of her past, and something within her starts to awaken. Breener awoke, only half-conscious, to the horrifying sight of her husband lying lifeless beside her. What was meant to be a beautiful vacation had turned into a nightmare. Overcome with grief and despair, she cried uncontrollably. That night, her pain drove her to the edge. Her mind cracked under the weight of sorrow, and she made a chilling decision. Someone would pay. A life for a life. Elsewhere, in a remote house where a gang led by a man named Butcher resided, several women were being abused by the men. The next morning, their boss, an elderly woman called Mama, arrived. Mama was no ordinary figure. She was a ruthless drug kingpin and an illegal arms dealer, hiding behind the facade of a restaurant owner. Back at the campsite where she had once been happy, Breener returned alone. The memories flooded in, each one heavier than the last. Grief turned to rage. Her face hardened. Nearby, she saw an axe buried in a tree trunk. She pulled it free and used it to sharpen a piece of wood, fashioning a makeshift spear. That afternoon, Mama sent Butcher to a warehouse to meet with a mafia boss named Hank. They finalized a weapons deal, and Butcher returned to see Lawrence, one of Mama's most trusted men. Known as the Nerd, Lawrence was a genius hacker who could break into any network or data system. Meanwhile, Breener, armed only with her wooden spear, silently approached the house where her husband had been murdered. She saw one of Mama's men exiting the building. Without hesitation, she attacked and took him down. Inside the house, she found a kitchen knife and retrieved the axe she had hidden before. Later, she noticed two of Mama's men, Earl and Jesse, heading into the forest to check on hidden drug equipment. As Jesse stepped away to relieve himself, Breener struck, knocking him unconscious. She then hunted down Earl and killed him. Returning to Jesse, she demanded the location of their hideout. Even when she wrapped a rope around his neck, Jesse refused to talk. Instead of killing him, Breener injured his leg and let him escape, using him as a message to Mama. This wasn't over. Soon after, Breener located and destroyed Mama's drug processing site. The explosion echoed through the forest, startling Mama and her crew. A hunter named Hobbs, nearby in the woods, heard the blast and stumbled upon Earl's body. Jesse, now limping and panicked, eventually crossed paths with Butcher. As they walked together, Jesse kept repeating that Breener was still alive and coming for them. Butcher ordered him into the car, unaware that Breener had secretly hidden in the trunk. Unknowingly, they delivered her straight to Mama's headquarters. Furious, Mama confronted Butcher for failing to eliminate Breener earlier. She demanded her men clean up the mess he had made. Wanting to know more about this mysterious woman, Mama instructed Lawrence to dig into Breener's past. It didn't take long. Breener was no ordinary woman. She was a U.S. Ranger, part of an elite military unit. Outside, Breener silently watched the compound, mapping out her next move. Once she understood the layout, she retreated into the forest and began crafting traps using wood and branches. That evening, Mama's men gathered in front of the house to hold a brief ceremony for Earl.
To Earl.
The night ended in drunken chaos, with many of the gang passing out in the yard. The full moon cast a silent glow over the unfolding events. As some men staggered into the warehouse to continue drinking, Breener moved into action. By morning, she emerged from the barn and noticed one of Mama's men dragging a woman toward a small hut. Suspicious, Breener followed, slipping past the others still unconscious from the night before. Inside the hut, she was horrified to find two more women trapped inside a cage. Without hesitation, she pried the door open with a crowbar and urged them to escape. The women followed her, but as they reached the front yard, one of them suddenly screamed, alerting one of Mama's men. Amidst the chaos, Breener managed to escape, bringing a woman named Emily with her. The two of them ran as fast as they could, hoping to lose their pursuers by heading deeper into the forest. But their escape took a turn when Emily was shot in the hand by one of Mama's men. Realizing the danger they were in, Breener acted quickly.
You're right.
Fortunately, the man chasing them triggered a trap Breener had set earlier, injuring himself on a sharp wooden spike. Back at the house, Mama began to realize something was wrong. Her men were either dying or disappearing. Panic set in, and she ordered Lawrence to contact Hank for help in hunting Breener down. That evening, Emily was overwhelmed with gratitude for surviving thanks to Breener. But her relief was short-lived. Even though she was safe for the moment, She feared that Mama's men would come after her again, especially because she was pregnant with Hank's child. She knew Mama wouldn't let her go so easily. Briner, trying to comfort her, promised to protect her and get her out of danger as soon as possible. She reassured Emily that she would find her a safe place to live in peace, far from Mama's reach. The next morning, while washing up in a small river, Briner suddenly heard Emily scream. She rushed to the sound and found Emily being taken by two men. Moving quickly and silently, Briner took down one of the men and shot the other as he tried to flee. Just then, Hobbs appeared on a hill below them. Both he and Briner raised their guns at each other, but Briner convinced him she was on the side of the law. Before anything more could happen, a man hidden above shot Hobbs in the leg. Briner responded immediately. She shot the attacker and then decided to take Hobbs with them to a safer location. However, Hobbs' injury slowed them down. Briner asked him to stay behind while she and Emily created a diversion to throw off Hank and his men. The two women continued deeper into the forest, but Hank's team stayed close, using dogs to track them. They eventually crossed a river and ran into a female officer, someone Briner had met earlier in a campsite. The officer offered them a ride out of the forest, and, feeling safe for the first time in a while, Briner and Emily fell asleep in the car. But when they woke up, they realized they had been brought back to Mama's house, where they were immediately captured.
Bring back to the house.
Inside, Mama was furious and ready to kill them. But Briner argued that if Emily died, so would her unborn child, Hank's child. This gave Mama pause. Rather than kill her, she ordered Emily to return to her role as a maid, as punishment. Briner, on the other hand, was dragged out of the living room, tied up, and locked in a room. Later, Clint, one of Mama's men, was assigned to watch over her.
Now you feed my boys.
Emily entered the room, bringing Clint breakfast as Mama had instructed. But Clint began acting inappropriately toward Emily. Briner, determined to protect her, offered herself as a distraction. Clint took the bait. As he moved toward Briner, she quickly turned the situation around. After a brief struggle, she called Emily over to untie her hands. Once free, Briner grabbed the knife and told Emily to stay put where it was safe.
Where are you going?
To clean house.
Briner then slipped out and ran straight into one of Mama's men. A fierce fight broke out, and Briner skillfully defeated everyone who got in her way. She moved carefully through the house, hiding a gun beneath a cloth, searching for a way out. Suddenly, a man crept up behind her, kicked her to the ground, and stepped on her injured hand. But Briner managed to pull out her hidden weapon and shot him just in time. Meanwhile, Mama returned to the house, only to find her man lying dead. Fear crept in as she noticed the rope that had once tied Briner's hands now lying loose. In the living room, Briner swept the area cautiously with her gun ready. Without warning, a man lunged at her from behind a cupboard with a knife. Briner reacted instantly, blocking the attack and pointing her gun at his head. Just then, Mama appeared, holding Emily hostage. Tension filled the room. Briner pleaded with Mama to let Emily go and allow them to leave peacefully, but Mama refused. She threatened to harm Emily, using her as leverage. Briner was devastated. She had promised to protect Emily, but now it seemed like she couldn't keep that promise. Emily was being used as a pawn, and her life was in serious danger.
I'm so sorry.
Briner had no choice but to flee. She found a car in the yard and drove away from the scene. Months passed. One day, Mama was sitting calmly on her porch, thinking everything had gone back to normal. But from the edge of the forest, Briner took her shot, killing Mama on the spot. And the film ended.